Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest podcast brought to you by the team at Export to Japan. And for this particular edition, we are looking into the world of architecture, interior design, construction, and touching on the kind of creative aspects of life in Japan and doing business in Japan. And our special guest today that's going to help us with this discussion, he is a gentleman that I'm so excited and so glad that we've been able to finally nail down. He's an incredibly busy man. We've been tracking him for a long time.
Sorry,
and this,
Steve.
No worries, it's okay. It's a good thing, and we've been very patient to get you. But you are a super busy guy, and super because you are involved in so many exciting things, and some of those I'm hoping to hear more about as we get on with this discussion. Mark Dytham here, who you can see, he's a name that when I started my journey 20 years ago in Japan, I heard his name as one of the key names back in those days, and his name's never gone away. He's popping up all over the place all the time, and we're delighted to get him. So, Mark, lovely to catch up with you and speak with you, and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much, Stephen. I'm delighted we've managed to connect finally. So,
yeah,
sorry, there's been a lot of travels recently and lots of things. So eventually found a moment. Brilliant.
No, absolutely no need to apologize, because I know all the exciting stuff you're involved in, and we're very grateful to grab a little piece of your time. Now, Mark, you are, I think by profession, you're actually an architect, and I think that's what you spend the majority of your time doing, and we'll learn a little bit more about that. But obviously you've got lots of other interests and exciting entrepreneurial things you're doing and helping other sectors and other people in the sector. But you've got this wealth of experience of doing business in Japan. And maybe just to kick off, if I could just ask you to give us a little bit of an overview of your background.
Sure.
When did you come to Japan? Why did you come to Japan?
Right.
Why did you stay there? What have you been doing while you've been there? Give us a quick overview.
Well, I guess it's kind of a long story. I grew up in Northamptonshire, in South Northants, on the edge of North Bucks, which is where they built Milton Keynes, and that saw that being built. The shopping centre was like some people building a space station in the middle of the countryside, and that's how I sort of decided to become an architect. And I worked at the Development Corporation there in my summer holidays, and went off to Newcastle University, spent my year out in Chicago with SOM, the biggest firm of architects in the world at that point. Came back to the Royal College of Art in London, and that's where this sort of fascination with Japan sort of really began. The Royal College is a real mix of disciplines. It's the only postgraduate design college in the world, and there you meet all sorts of people. There are lots of influences, and we were seeing all these amazing magazines from Japan, Shinkenshu, GA magazine, and all these incredible buildings that were being built in the bubble then. This is 86. And there was just this fascination to go there. And at that time, I was doing a bit of part-time work with SOM in London, and everything was taking 5 or 6 years to get through planning on the Royal Fine Arts Commission. And it was just like so slow. And then there was all this crazy stuff going off in Japan. So I decided that it would be really good if I could find a way to get to Japan. And along with my my good friend at the Royal College of Art, Astrid Klein, who is still my business partner now, 35 years later, we decided to try and get to Japan. And I managed to get a travel scholarship from Milton Keynes Development Corporation. Astrid won the Richard Rogers Prize at the Royal College. And we came to Japan for 3 weeks, 3 months. Now it's over 30 years. And yeah, it's been kind of amazing. We met Toyo Ito in the first few days of arriving in Japan. In fact, we wrote to the 10 best architects in Japan, and that was a real nightmare finding their addresses because there was no internet then. But we wrote, we sent portfolios, we got no answers because they didn't quite know how to reply. But there was one contact who spoke English, and we managed to, so they said, come to Japan. ring everybody up. These are the numbers. They know you're going to call on this day. We call them up. And we met the 10 best architects in Japan over the next 3 weeks. So it was Izozaki or Tadao Ando, Toyo Ito, Fumihiko Maki. It was amazing. And, you know, you imagine some young Japanese architects going to London, probably not quite the same reception, but, you know, that was back 35 years ago. And we met Toyo Ito. We worked for him for a couple of years before establishing our own firm, foolishly, without speaking or reading or writing. But there was a lucky break, and we set up our own firm, and we've been slowly, gradually stepping up since then. And today we've got an office of like 20 staff, and you know, pretty interesting projects happening all around Japan and in Southeast Asia too.
Fabulous. I mean, what an amazing story. And already from that overview, I've got a ton of questions to ask. There's just so many things. But one thing I will say, apart from the kind of fun and excitement coming through and the passion coming through from your story there are some really interesting snippets about your approach to the market and the various different stages you went to. For example, when you spoke about reaching out to those 10 architects when you got here and kind of connecting and making that network and things, you know, so many things that we can all learn about entering the Japanese market and how to build relationships and move on to be successful there. And we'll come on to talk about that a little bit more in a moment. But what I'd like to sort of understand from you next is, as I mentioned, the focus of this discussion, because there's so much we could talk to you about, but the focus of this discussion, we're going to keep on the kind of architecture and interior design kind of theme and that sort of construction sector. And I wanted to ask you, in the last sort of couple of years, you know, there's been an awful lot going on in the world. What sort of trends are you noticing in this particular sector over there in Japan?
Yeah, there's been a lot of change here, just like everywhere else in the world. There's certainly, it's certainly more flexible working environment. We're seeing that a lot. We're getting lots of requests for offices to upgrade their offices, make them more interesting. How do we get our staff to come back to the offices is one thing. The other thing is people are giving offices, large companies are giving people more flexibility in the way they work so they can work at home. So that whole notion of, you know, shared office spaces are becoming really important. So the interesting thing here is if you do work at home, if the offices do allow you to work at home, your home environment's not the best place to work because everybody lives in fairly small apartments. And so if you've got kids and stuff, it's kind of a night. You don't want to work at home. So this notion of we're working with a company where they've got this brand called Shared Lounge. They've opened 30 already, and that allows, you know, it's just a drop-in space where you can work and get away from your front room and do some serious work or take a call. So this flexible work environment is really changing things here. We work for a large hotel brand here. A Japanese hotel brand, and there's been a request to make sure that the rooms have a desk somewhere where people can sit and work, because they're finding people, instead of coming for 2 days, they're actually coming for 4 days. They've got a Friday and a Monday off. So it's a 4-day stay, but you know, the husband or the wife may have to work. So where can they do that, either in the room or in the hotel? So there's a roll on there too, yeah. So that's one of the big changes. I think that's happening all around the world, to be honest. But it's very prevalent here in Japan, as I say, because apartments are small, so working from home has a different implication.
Yeah, I totally get the point you're making on that, Mark, and I think it is very, very interesting for us to hear about that particular trend in Japan, because I totally understand and agree with the points you're making about, you know, small home space and the cramped conditions making it difficult for people to work from home and not so easy. Whereas we know in the UK and the US and other cultures, it's been a lot more prevalent to sort of have a bit of a work from home culture. And I also remember in my early days in Japan, there's very much a sort of business culture in Japan where people like to go to the office and like to work in big teams and open plan environments and get all the sort of feelings around that. So it's fascinating to hear that how the change has come in Japan now, that there has been a bit of a trend away from that, but also the same point about companies are trying to think of innovative ways to get people back to work and back to the office now. So very interesting.
Yeah, we've been working for a big Japanese bank here, and that was a key thing. How do we get people to come back? In fact, one of the tricks we've done is we've had an adopt a plant policy with it. We've got this big green wall that runs through the office, and you adopt several plants. It has your name on them. So if you don't come enough and don't water your plant, they know you've not been in the office. So
wow.
there's a lot of fun things you could do. They actually have a gardener that comes in and he does a lunchtime talk and things like that. So we're trying to find innovative ways to get people to enjoy coming back to the office.
Yeah, fascinating. And also, I remember from my trips over, there was always a bit of a culture too that people used to go, for example, and sit in the coffee chain. Starbucks is one that's been wildly successful, and there are others. But there are always sort of Japanese business people sitting, tapping away on their computers for long periods in Starbucks and things. I mean, is that a trend that is carrying on?
Yeah,
seeing changes in
that's where what I just mentioned, Share Lounge. They've got
right.
30 locations more, looking to open 100 by the end of next year. It's like an advanced Starbucks. So you've got a little bit more space. You've got a couple of power outlets. But it's okay to chat. There's free coffee and snacks. And it's 10 or 15 pounds an hour. You've got an app. You don't have to be a member. It's just drop in. It's quite interesting. In fact, in Share Lounge, what's quite interesting is James Dyson has his lamps on the tables there as a marketing thing. So you can use James's lamp, which swings round, and there's a QR code where you can buy the lamp. So there are marketing opportunities even within these offices too. Yeah. So
that's a great tip. Yeah. Well, that's one of my questions coming up is some of your thoughts on how to enter the market. And there's a great creative one there that the Dyson organization have clearly tapped into. Very, very smart one. Yeah, and just a quick point, that great example you gave me of the plants and watering the plants, that reminds me of, I remember again back in my early days, 15, 20 years ago, this kind of, I think it's Tamagotchi tradition, wasn't it? Where you had to look after your little digital pet or something. Yes, feed your digital pet in order to keep them alive. And it's a modern day version of that, it sounds like.
More physical, or back to reality,
That's amazing. Now, one of the expressions that I've sort of heard recently, and I don't know if you're familiar with this and you can elaborate on it, and I think it's a fairly prevalent one, but I've heard this expression called Japan on sale in relation to sort of property and investment properties and things like that. I'm sure you've come across that and you're familiar with that. Could you tell us a little bit more about the...
Sure. So the yen is incredibly weak, as I'm finding out as my daughter's just started at Goldsmiths University. So the UK is not on sale. It's 20% more than it was when we started looking at colleges around the world. But Japan, the yen has depreciated to probably 20 to 25% off what it used to be only a couple of years ago. So there's a lot of movement here in the real estate market. A lot of people are investing here. And that's meant that there's a lot of luxury, high-end apartments being built, really as investment vehicles or tax instruments, whichever way you want to look at it. There's definitely a shift away from building offices. What we're hearing is that the last. So let me just go back a little bit. The construction industry really slowed down in 2019 because the Olympics were coming in 2020 and everything went through the roof cost-wise, all the building things. And so many of the large developers decided, hey, we'll wait till the Olympics have passed. Well, of course, the Olympics got moved a year. Then COVID really took hold and nothing happened for the next two years. So there was kind of 3 or 4 years of pent-up demand where there was no building going on. And right now, all of that money is all the 3 years of money is coming through and all these offices are being built. But after that, and because of the work from home notions, there is basically no offices in the pipeline, what we're being told. Large office developments after the current tranche of offices. But that's being backfilled by all these luxury apartments, and we're talking $10 million and above. So really, like sort of Chelsea Harbour, Battersea Power Station type things, where it may be money coming from outside Japan to buy these apartments. So I think there's lots of potential there for high-end furniture, for high-end fabrics or wall coverings. There's definitely a strong market coming through, and I think there's a lot of Chinese and Southeast Asian cash coming in to the country. So that's really beginning to change things.
Yeah, that's really, really
And I
fascinating.
think the other thing with that Japan on sale is that there are so many tourists here. It is so there are all these hotels built for the Olympics, and unfortunately they actually were mothballed during the Olympics. They were built and mothballed, and everybody thought they would never be filled. But right now, Japan is as I say, on sale. Everyone's here. All the hotels are full, and there's a lot of hotel development going on too. So we're working on 3 major hotels at the moment, brand new hotels, and that's a big change to even 5 years ago. There's a big thrust, and they're not just in Tokyo or Osaka, they're throughout Japan. And so Japan is really seeing itself as a big destination going forward. Or
Yeah,
even
that's
a
amazing.
destination going forward. And it's great that this is happening in different. We're building a hotel in Fukui Prefecture, and that's 100. It's kind of a 100-room hotel. It's pretty major, and that's the biggest change, that we're not just building them in the major cities. Japan is finding a way to draw people out into the countryside and take the burden off of Kyoto, Osaka, and Tokyo. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that point in itself is a great one to hear, because I know with the work we do over the years, Tokyo itself has got such a strong brand image, and so many overseas people think of Japan and automatically just think of Tokyo, and maybe they know a little bit about Osaka and sometimes Yokohama, but then beyond that, not too many people know much about the rest of Japan. And as you know incredibly well, and I know, there is an incredible rich diverseness right through the country. So it's really good to hear of different things.
The government's been pretty clever on that. And so with this private, public-private finance initiatives they're having here, so they've allowed construction to go on sometimes in a national park, and allowing hotels or other businesses to develop projects there for tourism. And we're seeing that in Fukui, seeing it in Mito. The major cities really thinking carefully how they can increase the tourism to improve, the area's economy.
Fabulous.
So, it's quite sensible planning, yeah. But gives lots of opportunities there, yeah.
Okay. Now, I wanted to touch on a point related to a few of the valuable points you brought up here. We've spoken about some of the really interesting trends. We spoke about the sort of office space and the work from home versus shared office space kind of changes going on. Fascinating stuff there. You then mentioned about the high-end apartments and all the trends going on there, and then talking about the hotels and things. Really fascinating bits. What I want to ask you is, one of the big perceptions that often comes up is that Japan is sort of renowned for quality and produces quality in everything it does, services and products. And the consumers in Japan, love quality and put a high value on quality. Where does that view sit in these kind of things you're talking about, the hotels you're working on, and some of the office space, new trends in office spaces that you're talking about? Where does quality sit in all of this? And I'm thinking about it particularly from the point of view of international companies looking to come into the market and supply products and services. Should it be the high-end quality stuff, or how does all that fit together, Mark, please?
Yeah, I think quality is really important, but I think one of the opportunities here is that there's a lack of international experience, and certainly in hotels. The big hotel groups are here, but they really struggle to find good staff, people that are competent at an international level. Having said that, all hotels around the world are struggling at the moment to find good staff. but quality is really important. And I think for us too, with all of our projects and our interiors, you have to be at, a very good level to break the market here, or break into the market here.
Mhm.
You've got to be at the top of your game, I think, to make a mark here. Um,
Yeah.
but if you've got a point of difference, then that makes it much easier. And so there's a UK club type hotel that's been, it's been a struggle for them to break into the market. They do have a very strong point of difference. But it's not, the quality is not, I wouldn't say it's an issue, to be honest. I think that you can, I think most people coming to Japan, thinking to come to Japan, have got that,
Mm.
probably got the right level there, yeah. But
Okay.
it is an important thing. And we, to being an architect or an interior designer in Japan, we have very strong competition here, and all the work we do has got to be at quite a strong level. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, on that very point, Mark, and just sort of touching back on your journey from the summary you gave us at the start of the fascinating journey via Northamptonshire and Milton Keynes, and then Newcastle, and then off to the US for a bit. And you've clearly settled incredibly well and built an amazing business out there in Japan. What have you done over the years? What's been your sort of strategy for your business on how you've differentiated in order to win business and grow?
Right. I mean, it's quite straightforward. We just see Japan in a different way to Japanese people, although we live here. And we always give the thing I get flown around the world to talk about is sort of we come to Japan and we get excited by the taxis, and the door opens automatically, you get in, and they have the antimacassar lace, and they used to have a flower or a little vending machine, or there's all the advertising in there, and they've got 5 or 6 different screens, and they've got their payment systems and all that, and you just go, wow. And Japanese people get in and see nothing. It's just normal for them. And so we see that sort of we see that we see newness here. There is so many new things. Everything has to be shinhatsubai atarashi, new. Whether it's a cigarette brand or a beer brand or something, every 6 weeks they're making a new product, and that's really epitomized in Kit Kat. So I know Kit Kats, different flavor Kit Kats are in the UK now. But when we arrived, it was the Roundtree Macintosh. I know it's owned by Nestle now, but Nestle bought it, and they start developing these, and to fit into this culture of new every 6 weeks, couple of months, and you've got to have a new product. They bring out a new flavor, and I'm not going to bring them out, but I've got about 150 different Kit Kat flavors, from sake to soy sauce to banana to pineapple to pomegranate, whatever it is. And then they'd bring out special ones for Valentine's Day or for Halloween. It's pumpkin flavor. And you've got to keep this thing moving, and that's what is really interesting and kind of informs our work. Yeah, that we get a lot of excitement from that, this newness, and trying to find something that's got a twist on an old theme, as it were, and so that Kit Kat, that British Kit Kat, has been improved and changed, and I think there's a lot in that, when you're talking about the Japanese mentality. In fact, there are 48 different flavors just for each prefecture in Japan. So
Wow.
there's one of the prefectures makes lots of ground pepper. So there's a pepper flavor there. There's green tea flavor. There is, as I say, a sake flavor one. And so there are 47 prefectural things, because when you go and travel in Japan or overseas, actually, you have to bring back a present for the people who couldn't go on the trip. and that's called
Right.
omiyagi. Yeah. And so there's a massive market for these souvenir type gifts. And you must never give a gift that you can't consume, that you have to keep and put on your shelf for the rest of your life. So all gifts in Japan should be consumable. That's why you have expensive melons and expensive grapes and different things, or soy sauce or expensive vinegar. So if we have a new staff comes to the office, we've hired a young graduate, the parents will come and give us a bottle of very expensive vinegar or very expensive soy sauce, but they would not bring us a clock or anything we have to feel we have to own for the rest of our lives. Yeah. So it's kind of
interesting. I know that's a first for me to hear that one, but but I get it. Yeah, you're not giving people stuff that's just going to clutter their life forever. They can enjoy it and consume it, but then they've got the memory.
That's where these, $300 or $400 melons come from in a box. It comes from the right shop. It's not necessarily about the melon itself. It's about the shop it comes from and the packaging it comes in. So those things kind of inform our work, and we see it differently to how Japanese people see it. So we're totally inspired by sort of the newness and energy from Tokyo, and that gives us this sort of twist and a different view of Japan, and our work is different because of that.
Yeah, fascinating. Again, so many little golden nuggets in there. Thank you for sharing this.
Sorry to go on a tangent there, but...
No, it was so valuable, Mark, and it's perfect and so valuable. I mean, even the bit you mentioned about when you spoke about in the different regions of Japan and sort of being aware of local traditions or cultures and customizing and developing and innovating to fit those local kind of cultures.
And they're
and things like that. It's
extremely
great
proud, these regions, about their product or what they do. And I think that, again, there's lots of potential there just outside of Japan, or sorry, outside of Tokyo, for these regions to really be, there's lots of potential there.
Yeah, I mean, no, these are absolute golden nuggets. I think for any of our viewers listening into this podcast who are thinking about entering the Japanese market or maybe starting to formulate their strategy for Japan, I think these are just valuable insights to think about for any company.
You have to think beyond Tokyo and the big regions here. There's potential across Japan.
Yeah, got you. The other bit it was bringing to my mind, I know with some of the companies that I've been introducing and sort of bringing into the Japanese market and going to initial pitching presentation meetings with Japanese companies, one of the common questions that often comes up that the Japanese side ask about the roadmap for the future, and what are the plans for the international company, the foreign company, to develop their products or services. And I'm always fascinated at the difference in time scales that the two sides look at. So I've taken companies in where they say, well, next year we want to be doing this, that, and the other, and in 18 months we want to be here. And the Japanese side go, well, what about in 5 years or 10 years? They've got that longer term vision and thinking about innovation and growth and direction. And very, very fascinating.
Yeah, I think that's important. I think if you're coming to Japan, you should be coming for the long haul, as it were. People like that here, and you're not just coming. It's not wham bam, thank you ma'am sort of thing. You're coming because you're committed. Although we had no idea we're going to be here for 35 years, but
amazing.
That is important. And people did used to ask us how long are you going to stay? And because they were worried because a building's a long time, it takes 2, 3, 4 years. And so were we still going to be, because we're foreigners, are we still going to be here while it's being built?
Right.
That's gone. We've passed that now a little bit, but anyway.
I hope so.
That doesn't come up anymore.
Yeah.
and they don't ask whether I can use chopsticks anymore. That's
good. Yeah, you've passed that test. The big tip there, right? No, again, there's a valuable point, and a very valuable point in what you're saying, and it's another thing. One of the things we preach heavily with the work we do at Export to Japan. This view on showing commitment to the market and doing everything you can to get the message across that you're in it for the long haul, right?
It goes right back to when we came to Japan. Yes, so we could write as many, letters and send as many portfolios by DHL to these famous architects. The key thing was that he said, well, why don't you come to Japan and then ring everybody up? So that was the
Right.
difference, yeah, as opposed to ring from the UK, because we hadn't shown commitment. We don't show commitment until we're here. And it's that type of thing. Is really important. Yeah.
Yeah. You're mirroring exactly the words of another great guest we happened to get a discussion with, another incredibly impressive guy like you that's done a great job in Japan, and that's Paul Smith from the fashion sector. And I remember Paul
Absolutely.
saying pretty much exactly the same thing you just said. He was saying in his early days, when he had no money, he used to get on the back end of the aircraft with his knees up at his chin in the little economy seat, flying via Russia or something, coming to Japan. But then he would meet people in person and just like you said, call people when he was there and say, I'm in Tokyo, I'd love to meet you. And he said that was one of the massive keys for him to break through in a very competitive market, showing that
sometimes is important. When you're starting a contract, or especially a new contract with a client, you've won a project, and you can't do what you do in the US and say, well, until the contract's finally written down and we've dotted all, we're not doing any work. We tend to get into projects and get a little bit into it before the contract. So I know that's completely what you're not taught at business school. It's not what you should do in China, but you have to kind of show a bit of a commitment, a bit of giri, as they say in Japanese. A bit of you've got to look like you're willing to be a part of the project, and even if the contract's not all, all the T's and I's are not crossed and dotted, you've got to get in there. If it's looking good, you should sort of run with it a little bit. Yeah. We've had very few, or maybe no clients that have stepped back and said, we're not going to work with you. So you just get your feet under the table.
Yeah. Another priceless piece of advice, actually, that one. That is, again, it's another one of these golden nuggets, because you're absolutely right. And I've been there. In the sort of what we might refer to as the sort of pre-sales process before, as you say, before contracts are signed, it can be a bit notorious in Japan to have to answer so many questions and supply so much information and have so many discussions and so many meetings. And a lot of companies give up. They won't go that course and be prepared to put that investment in, right? Because they think, I want the contract and I want some commitment for you before I'll go to these lengths. But what you're saying is exactly right. And clearly you've got the experience of doing that putting that effort in upfront and being willing to, I guess, take a small measured risk, but also being prepared to invest. But it pays off, doesn't it? It's part of the process of building the relationship, right? And I think
the fact they're talking to you already is a good sign, and so you just need to keep sort of going down that path. But of course, when it gets, you stop when you feel that it's not viable for you. But generally, let's go with the flow as much as you can, and then generally things work out. Yeah.
I mean, just sort of expanding this point, because I think it is a really valuable one we've touched on. I remember an example somebody was once telling me where they said that typically in the kind of Western world, we will enter into discussions, get to know somebody in a sort of business commercial relationship environment, and we'll kind of get a gut feeling and we'll make a commitment to work together, and we'll have a bit of a mindset of we'll work some of the detail out later, once we've made the commitment to each other. But I understand in Japan, that might be a little bit different. Much more of the detail and the scenarios are discussed and worked out and evaluated up front before that serious commitment's made. But then it means in Japan, the implementation tends to be a lot quicker because all the effort was put in up front, right? Would you confirm that from your sector?
Absolutely. And it's the same even just working here too, There are lots and lots of meetings, but if we're working on a construction site, you're working with the construction, endless meetings, but on site, everything is absolutely perfect and runs like clockwork because we've put in the effort beforehand. All the materials that are going to be used that day arrive that morning at 8 a.m., 8 or earlier, and they're used and they're finished, and nothing's going to get wet. and nothing's going to be left there, or be stolen, or everything arrives, just in time. It's used on the site in the day. 4 o'clock, they're sweeping up, getting tidy for the next delivery of plasterboard or cement or whatever it is, but it's because they've done all that pre-preparation. We've had all these endless meetings to make sure that it's going to be perfect on the time. And so it seems frustrating when you first start working here, that why are we talking about this, because it makes it much smoother, much more efficient for the actual implementation of a project, or anything you're working on.
Yeah, perfect example. I'm so glad we've touched on that, because I understand exactly what you're talking about. And I always use the sort of, the very simple analogy of with things like this. There's no point in swimming against the tide, right? You've got to swim with the tide. So learn the way these things work in Japan, and appreciate the benefits of it, why it works that way, and the big benefits as you've elaborated on, and swim with the tide. Yeah, go with it. Don't fight against it. I think that's really, really good advice. Okay, Mark, we spoke a little bit earlier when we were talking about all the different trends in the different sectors. You did touch on a couple of areas of sort of opportunity for overseas companies coming into the market, but I just want to sort of pull you back on that. I mean, from your perspective and from where you sit in this sort of sector that we're talking about, in the architecture and interior design sector, what are the areas where you feel that there are opportunities for overseas companies to come into the market?
As I say, hospitality is really an open market here, I think. And I also think furniture too, furniture and finishes potentially is strong. But I think, just as a caveat to all of that, I think you always need to have a strong partner here, or a partner here. I think coming just arriving and thinking you're going to do it on your own is not going to happen. You've got to find that little niche, or that big niche that you can fill, and try and find a partner in Japan that can help you, or give them an edge beyond their competitor, that they're working with a UK firm and they've got this experience. And so you've really got to find that area that you think you really excel at, and look at potential partners here in Japan. And that might be, it could be just a single, it could be just one person. I'm not saying it has to be a large firm. We have quite a lot of examples of architects coming over here from Europe, and in fact, an intern that used to work for them has gone back to Japan, or he or she is with a large company, and they said, well, how about you step out and help us establish in Japan? But you really need to find a partner. And as I say, there are many ways to do that. It could be a large company, or it could be an intern that used to work for you, but that partnership is really important. Yeah. And that helps, the people that you're going to sell your product or sell your services to be much more comfortable, because there's somebody in Japan that's accountable and is able to tell the service provider all of the, just like you do, all of the correct ways to operate in Japan.
Yeah, of course. Like, there's massive benefit in doing that, and I would agree totally with what you're saying. With all the various entrepreneurs we've interviewed and worked with over the years, that is always a common theme that comes out from all of them, that they found their local person or
we see opportunities everywhere, just like I mentioned with Dyson, not just the vacuum cleaners, but their lights here. Really? Working with KEF speakers. Again, really interesting, because they've got these small kind of small but super high fidelity speakers, which are perfect for a Japanese home. They weren't designed for a Japanese home, but it makes so much sense. And I think with James's son, his lights too really fit into. They're quite compact. They fit into a Japanese house quite well. So again, there was that compactness. There's a scale issue here. I think everything has to be like 30% smaller, and I think that if you do cute small furniture, there's a potential chance here for those type of things. Yeah, I'm not saying that large furniture works as well, but
of course
there are funny little niche markets where products go really, really, really well.
Okay, Sounds great. Yeah, really, really good. There's clearly lots of opportunity for organizations and companies with products, and I think with some of the stuff you touched on with services as well. There's good opportunities coming through too.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, Japanese people love the Brits. Okay, that's we both have imperial royal families. We both drive on the same side of the road. We're both island nations. We both have the yen and the pound still. There's a lot of synergy, and I think people have to sort of use that too. Yeah.
Of course, it's absolutely use that to your advantage whenever you can. And again, I agree and understand totally from you. Mark, from your perspective, we've learned a lot in this discussion about your journey, and we've picked a lot of the sort of insights out from you of your knowledge and your wisdoms along the way. But I want to specifically ask you, as we begin to wrap up now, I want to specifically ask you about your journey as you've built your business and other things that you're involved in out there. Would you say the whole thing has been plain sailing? You come across as a very positive, happy guy. You smile, you laugh, and have you had some obstacles along the way? Have you had some challenges? And could you share one or two thoughts about those things?
There are obstacles, and got to be careful what I say. There are obstacles every day, and people look at you differently, and there are some there are projects which haven't come our way because we're not Japanese, but there are projects that have come our way because we're not Japanese. So you can't say one way or another, but you have to be fairly thick-skinned, and you put any sort of derogatory feelings towards foreigners here down to just you put it down to naivety, and put it down it's their loss. You will come across that every day, whether it's with a taxi driver or wherever it might be, but you just have to ignore it, and as I say, put it down. But you have to remember you're always a guest in Japan, and so act accordingly. But we the big projects that sort of really help change our office is Daikenyama Tea Site, in central Tokyo. It was an invited competition, 77 architects, Kengoku, Motoyo Ito, the whole gang, and us. We were the only foreign firm, and we got into the final 11. So 10 Japanese and us, and we managed to win the project. So you cannot say that there's sort of discrimination. So you have to be really happy about that. But it is a struggle. You will find there are barriers, just like there are barriers in the UK too. In different areas, in different things, if you're not in the right group or whatever. So I think you just have to put it down to that. But you just have to be patient here, I think, and doors will open. And we find that certainly that there are less barriers here for planning. Okay, so there's no visual planning. We take our project to the Kuyakusho, to the borough office, and as long as it fits onto the area and the structure and the shadow lines, no one no one cares what it looks like. Okay. No one's going to say that you've got to line through the next door buildings, your fenestration or whatever. It's nothing of that. So as long as it meets requirements, it can look whatever you want, and that's why we love it here. It's such a fascinating and free place, although it's very constrained. There's a huge amount of freedom here.
Yeah, that's a fascinating juxtapozition, isn't it, against some of the dynamics of being constrained versus unleashing those handcuffs and just giving you freedom to design creatively how you want.
Again, there's really nothing here style-wise to what your project looks like. No one cares, So because it's only going to last for 30, 40, 50 years, and another one will come along.
Yeah, of course.
That's changing a little bit. That's another podcast, but
okay, yeah, we'll pick that up on another one. No, it's fascinating. Well, just to kind of wrap up, Mark, I mean, I'm well aware of all the amazing projects you've worked on, and I've had the pleasure of visiting several of your projects, and always been highly impressed. You're very humble in the way you come across, but I can certainly say it for you. You've done an amazing thing, and you've designed incredible buildings in Japan, and you're making your mark on the landscape, which, as you say, is highly impressive. As a Brit, I'm very proud of you, and just as a foreigner to do it, it's amazing. It's really, really impressive. But I want to just wrap up by asking about, what's next for you? You've had an incredible journey. You're involved in some amazing things. You touch lots of different things. What's your thought for the future? Where do you see things going, and what are you planning?
Yeah, that's a good. Well, we're still planning to be here. I think what's been interesting for me recently is my daughter's just started her education back in the UK. She's 18. She's just started at Goldsmiths University in London. And there are sort of lots of opportunities beginning, because I'm traveling backwards and forwards more to the UK, or hope to, that things there'll be stronger ties back with the UK. We worked with Selfridges, but back in the day, we've done several projects in London. And so we'd be keen to sort of start up that connection more, and find sort of good connections back with the UK again. Not that we've ever lost them, but I think just my daughter being there, and my son's at the British School right now here in Tokyo. So there's that strong sort of connection. So we're going full circle almost.
Yeah, amazing.
Which would be really nice.
Yeah, well, that will be good to see, and I hope your daughter's settling in well back here in the UK, and I'm sure she'll.
Well, she flies back into Tokyo for Christmas tomorrow.
Oh, okay, good. Well, that's nice. I bet you're looking forward to seeing it. That's great. Well, listen, Mark, our time has come. I knew it would fly by so quickly, and there's a million and one other things I would love to ask you, but the clock is ticking against us. And certainly, I'd love to have you back. We discussed lots of other topics that we can spin off from, and I'll try and catch some more time in your diary, some point perhaps in 12 months or so, and we'll get you back to talk some more. But I just want to wrap up.
Chatting to you. It's been very nice to a little bit.
Absolutely. Thank you. And I've enjoyed it too. It's been so fascinating to hear your story. I've loved watching it from a distance over the last 20 years, and now to get the chance to nail you down and have a chat through. And
well, we have lots of new projects we can show you around when you get back. So
wonderful. Can't wait. I'll definitely take you up on that. But for everyone listening in to the podcast, I hope that's been a great discussion. I think Mark is an amazing inspiration himself in what he and his partner have done in entering the Japanese market and building an incredible business there, and really breaking down barriers that would have been barriers that would stop a lot of people. There's an awful lot of people that would have hit some of those hurdles and found the going a little bit tough, but somehow Mark has broken through them and continued to build an incredible business out there. And in his particular area of architecture, get involved in designing some really impressive buildings. And so all credit to you, Mark, and thank you for sharing some valuable insights to our audience that we can all learn from of how you've done it. There's so many.
Well, we hope to see them here in Japan. Yeah. So.
Well, I think you're blazing the trail for others to follow, definitely. So, and Mark, if anyone wants to sort of reach out to you, there may be some people that would love to sort of get in touch. I guess you're on LinkedIn and all over the internet.
Yeah, I think just search my name, Mark Dytham, in LinkedIn. Yeah. It's probably the easiest way, or it's mark@klein-dytham.com, and you can find me.
Brilliant.
We have a very unusual surname, so I pop up quite a lot. It's very easy to find me on Instagram or Facebook or any of those things too.
Yeah, probably another one of those things that's an advantage and a disadvantage, right? But anyway, we could discuss that another time. But listen, Mark, great to speak with you. We'll let you crack on with the rest of your day.
Okay,
thank you for your time, and thanks to everyone for listening in. I hope you found that valuable, and keep listening out for future podcasts from us at Export to Japan. Okay, thank you, Mark. Great to speak with you.
Thanks now. Bye-bye.